So first video after my intro. I'm gonna talk about the boxing of the weekend. Um, George Kambosos Jr. versus Devin the Dream Haney. Obviously, I actually woke up for this fight. I do work at night, so wasn't too hard because I'm pretty much up at that time working anyway. So, yeah. My thoughts on the fight were, I spoke to a lot of people, obviously that know boxing and stuff like that, and they said shut out. And personally, I can't disagree. I was me being generous. I think if I remember, I think round two, I think George, he might hit Henny with a left hook to the body. That might have been the most meaningful punch in that round. So if I'm being generous, because I'm maybe feeling a bit generous, I'll give him one round. So I'd say 11-1. But listen, 12-0, 11-1. It was an easy fight to score. All that talking, the build up from George talking about Haney being a snitch, a rat, informant, and all that nonsense. It was just all to get under his skin. If you go back to the Tiafimo fight, he got under his skin. And if you watch the fight against Tiafimo was just loading up on one shot. We all know Tiafimo is a better fighter. Like every fighter, when you're setting off the jab, you're throwing off the jab, you're setting up, you're leading off it, you're setting traps for your opponent off the jab. Everything comes off the jab, as we all know. So when you got a man loading, looking for one shot, one right hand all the time, that means that he's got mentally been broken from the press conferences and the lead up to the fight. And that's what Tiafimo did. So Tiafimo didn't take George Kambosos seriously. Now, my personal opinion is if they fought again, Tiafimo will do the business on him. And not trying to say that George Kambosos is not a good fighter, but I always thought he was almost like a Buster Douglas. And don't take offense to that when I say that. It's just in the sense of you done something that you wasn't supposed to do, but if you had to redo it again, you realize you're not on the level of the other guys around you. But because you did what no one else did, and you look, and the full credit to you, you stood out. And I feel like that went to his head because don't get me wrong, he's always been a talker. But if you go back to the Lee Selby fight, I watched that closely. That could have gone either way, to be honest with you. That's why I thought Tiafimo would get rid of him because I didn't see anything in there that would give him problems. But complacency in boxing, as we know, is probably one of the most common sport, if not the most. That if you underestimate your opponent, if you don't take the camp seriously, you're not training, you don't have that fear factor in camp to go the extra mile because you're feeling the threat in front of you, you can't switch it on in the ring and you'll get found out. And that's what happened to Tiafimo, especially in that first one when he got dropped with that right hand over that lazy jab. So that's what can happen. And I feel like Kambosos took that energy and he's been a bit gassed, talking this, talking that. I felt like he keeps talking about we prepared for this and art of war, deception, all that nonsense, just a load of rubbish trying to say Haney's a gangster here and he's the one that's trying to act like a gangster. It got to him. You could tell the pressure, he was trying to deflect it, saying that he's out here for his Australian and Greek fans, which he is, which he's there support he's there fighting for. But you could tell the pressure was getting to him. For me it's fairly obvious all fight week, when a man's talking too much, like they say the loudest talking in the room is normally the weakest, and he was just talking hell of a lot. He was just keep going on. That's why Haney was saying, "Look, go and stop the pretending. We know you're nervous. Of course you are. You never thought in your lifetime you'd be in a situation like this. You're trying to get under my skin because from a boxing point of view, you can't rattle me. But sorry, Lee, I'm going a bit drifting on. But going to the fight, from round one, the way I thought it'd play out, he just couldn't get past the jab. Haney just stopped that jab anywhere he wanted to. He controlled the pace. When he wanted to fight, he would do it. If he wanted to sit back and take time, he'd do it. I think Kambosos was, I think he was surprised by the strength. I know, not obviously he was surprised by the speed and the timing and the ring IQ and obviously the trigger happy jab because that jab will just go at any moment. It's head to the body. In fact, Haney's got one of the best jabs in boxing, if not the best. Definitely top 5, top 3 for me. And she proved it again. And I think she was shocked by the strength though, because I think a lot of people look at Haney as like a little boy kind of thing, and they feel like a lot of like you might get rough. You can rough him up a bit. You can kind of manhandle him like what's the word I'm looking for? They use kind of old man him. That's what I'm looking for. Old man him in there. I think Kambosos was shocked how strong Haney is for that weight. He couldn't. Anytime they got into a clinch or Haney would jab and then clinch him in, he couldn't actually push him off. He couldn't even push him back into the ropes. He couldn't do anything. Haney was always in control of every aspect of that fight. And I think he was shocked by the strength of Haney as well, as much as the other technical things that Haney's good at anyway. So yeah, I think Haney. It was an easy fight to score. I mean, how two of the judges scored it 160, 112. I mean, you're in Australia, you're in MG territory. They got to make it look closer than it is. I think the biggest indicator of how easy that fight was to score was the fans. How quiet it was in there. That's normally a telltale sign. Because if you're the home fighter and you're doing well, the fans are cheering, going mad. They expect they anticipate something's happening. Those fans were quiet. The only time I saw them apart from the first round when they were trying to first couple rounds and they realized they could see the pattern of play that was going to happen. Right until the end, they were trying to. At the end, when Kambosos had to kind of go for it, but then again, he didn't really. But he had to kind of step on the gas and run around. That's it. But everything through the middle, right through, because nothing was quiet. They were just they bought into the whole Kambosos act, this, that, and the other, and all this, and talking about he might have missed weight by pretense. Like, come on, man, that's unprofessional that you miss weight. You talking about a couple weeks ago, I can make weight now. Clearly not. So you probably had too many foods as champion, and you had to. Your camp was based on bringing weight down more than actually technically working on things. So because you're at home, like for example, sometimes when a foreign fighter travels away. Sometimes they can get caught out with water weight and stuff like that because they're having to rehydrate and dehydrate, especially when you're doing such a big travel from one part of the world to the other. Something, you know what I mean? But obviously Haney was fine. Haney's still making 135, and that's the best that he's looked at it. I heard him after the fight in the post conference, or I think he's talking to one of the YouTube channel. I can't remember which one I saw it off, and he said that it might have been the post press conference. He was talking about he hired a new nutritious, and that's the best he's made weight. He normally have to put on sweatsuit saunas and stuff like that to obviously drain the weight off, and this time he's just eating healthy, doing things properly and stuff like that, and he made weight, and that's good. But I still think he needs to move up to 140 because don't get too carried away with George Kambosos. That was an excellent performance, but Kambosos never got close to him or wasn't allowed to get close to him to even test the gas tank. Because normally when a man's struggling to make weight or he's draining down too much or he's doing it for too long, it's when he's fighting a guy, a rough and tough fighter that's going to get inside and bust him up to the stomach. That's when the stamina and stuff will start. You start to see if he's really making that weight properly. But obviously, he never was in that situation. He could have done another 12 rounds the same way. So I still want to see him make 140 because he's still on the button of 135. And eventually, he's only 23. He's only going to naturally grow. I see Haney at 147 by the time he's 27, 28. Because he can do 140 now. He's going to grow again into 147. Potentially even 154, who knows? But he'd definitely be a welterweight at some point in his career. So I look at it and I think to myself, why the Irons Hop move up? Because let's get into the for both fighters. What's next? I'll get to Haney, obviously being the undisputed champion. Big up, champ. I mean, I've been a believer in Devin Haney from the get go. I know, for me, I've always said he's better than all of them. When they're talking about the four kings and stuff like that, I said he's the best because no one wants to fight him. Haney keeps calling them out. None of them want that smoke. They already know what time it is. Tiafimo didn't want that smoke. He kept running around talk to Bob. He went on that. He went on that smoke. Like Lomachenko didn't want it. The whole reason why the other lot called him an email champion is because of Lomachenko. When Haney was mandatory for his belt, right? He didn't want that smoke. He went and petitioned for the franchise. So and he looked at Tiafimo as an easier fight. Obviously that went wrong. But he didn't want the Haney smoke. And now I see him after the fight talking about he wants his belts. Me, if I'm Haney, you don't even get the opportunity. Because when I was after you, you didn't want to give me the opportunity. And now that I've cleaned up and been a proper undisputed fight, because let's get it right, people. That fight with Kambosos on Sunday morning, like UK time anyway. That was the proper undisputed fight. The Tiafimo Lopez and the Lomachenko fight wasn't undisputed properly because Haney had the WBC, and neither was the Tiafimo Kambosos. That was again they had the franchise. That doesn't, no other sanctioning body looks at that as you can't use that belt to unify with any other champion. So, what was I saying? Yeah, you can't use it to unify with any other champion. So that wasn't so the only real undisputed fight was Kambosos versus Haney, and Haney's the man now. So, congrats, champ. I don't think anyone wants to see the rematch because I know Kambosos talking about. I mean, I'm gonna get onto Kambosos in a minute because there's like a virus going on of delusional with fighters recently, but I'm gonna get onto that. If I'm Haney, If he has to run it back, then get that work done again, and then move up to 140, and try to become a 2-weight champion and do your thing up there. It's a good division at the moment as well. But the Lomachenko fight wouldn't give him time of day, because when you wanted your shot at it, he didn't want to give it to you. It reminds me a bit of Errol Spence when Furman was champion and Spence was chasing his ass. Furman kept making excuses. He was trying to even chase Mayweather. Mayweather was like, "No, you got to watch your young puppies and watch why did you fight Spence." I remember Mayweather coming out saying that. And Furman was dodging and diving. And now look at Furman. The roles are switched now. Spence is the main man. Well, he's got the most of the belts. I know him and Crawford are closer fight. I'm going to get into that video in another video, separate. He didn't want to give him a shot. And now Furman wants Spence to give him a shot. And I know Spence is like, nah, when I was champion, you weren't. When you were champion, you weren't giving me nothing. You ain't getting nothing now. Unless you have to earn that shit. So I'll do the same with Loma. Free up the belts. Give them, let them and vacate all of them and move up to 140. Don't give them the opportunity. I know you want the big fights, Haney, but you know, people want to start coming out when you got what they wanted or what they had. Nah, that was his loss. You know, he went for the easier fight with Tiafima, or what he thought was the easier fight, and he lost anyway. So that's his business. So no disrespect to Lomachenko, you've had a great career. You're Hall of Fame already. You know, this great skills, but you know, you did something that I didn't respect. You know what I mean? So anyway, Haney's this done thing. So that's what I'll do for Haney. For Kambosos, he has to take the rematch because he has to save face in a sense, because the problem is the Australian public would now lose hope in him. He was talking all that smoke, didn't do a delivery. He was talking about art of deception. He's ready for war. At what point in that fight did Kambosos go and rush Haney and say, I'm going to make this a dog fight? He never did at any point. Now, I'm not saying that Haney didn't allow him to. There's another side to it. But he never, ever went in there, you know, even being a bit reckless. He didn't do anything. You know what I mean? So all that talking the smoke, trying to rattle Haney, didn't do anything. So the public in Australia are going to lose faith in him until he can do something back with it. So he has to. He's going to have to activate that rematch clause, because they lose hope. They will lose hope in him. You know, he did nothing that what he said he was going to do. So my concern is, I don't know. He didn't do anything mentally. He tried to get in his head talking about he's a snitch, all of that nonsense. Didn't work. There's nothing technically he can do in there that's going to change. So I don't know what he's going to do in a rematch. When it comes to the press conference and the lead up to the second fight, potential second fight, what's he going to do that's going to make him any better? I mean, I know he's talking about if it was a close fight and blah, blah. You know, here comes the deception thing I was talking about a minute ago. There's like a virus of deception with fighters. And now I know fighters are not the best. We are not the best to score fights because they focus on what they do, not focus on what's coming back at them. So they're not the best to score fights. But I see this with Josh Taylor, Jack Catterall, when Taylor thought he won the fight, when we all know Catterall won that comfortably. And I see this with Canelo against Bivol again. Canelo saying that he thought he won a fight. No, Bivol won it comfortable. And I see it again with Kambosos saying that. I even see him saying he thought you hurt him a couple of times. You didn't hurt anyone. None of you hurt each other. But you got yourself jabbed off. Your eye swollen up, bust up. So, yeah. There was nothing in there, you know. You didn't hit. You missed more shots than you punched. That, you know, it was easy to see the amount of punches you missed. If we did a stat for how much punches he missed, it would look crazy. You know, he missed a lot. Haney made him miss a lot, and he just caught him a couple of times with good shots. So, yeah, for Kambosos, 45. I mean, he's gonna have to do the rematch to save face. But personally, if Haney goes a different direction or that rematch doesn't get done, I don't know where he goes. He might have to go back to fighting C-level fighters, try to get himself out there. The problem is with Kambosos, he's not a draw like that. He just did something, because he was the man of the division, he had all the belts and that. So he can't get 40,000 people to come out watch him against anyone. He needed it to be against someone. The problem is that he ain't going to have no fights in Australia, because he's going to have to go back to America and build his name again. In the sense of, people are not going to come out to watch Kambosos, you know. A lot of people in Australia didn't even want him to win because of his arrogance and the way he talks, and he goes like his little bad boy. So they didn't even want him to win. So, let alone him now losing in that kind of fashion. You know, people prefer to get knocked out, spark out, so, you know, you got caught with a good shot, than to get absolutely outboxed and look lost in there, didn't know what to do. So, I'm not sure what he can really do. He needs that rematch to try to save faith and maybe try to do a bit better. But we all know Haney. The only person that can improve in that fight is Haney. My only worry for that fight for Haney is complacency. Because he did it so easy the first time, he might take his eye off the ball and, you know what I mean? That's the only thing. But other than that, it's light work, to be honest with you. So, yeah. So that's kind of my thoughts on the fight. Obviously leave your opinions in the comment section, but yeah, that's kind of how I saw the fight. I saw it as too easy, too one-sided. A jab, right hand, check left hook here and there. I love the way Haney was pivoting off the ropes and turning around and getting kambosos. He always had an exit, no matter where kambosos was trying to move him to, and yeah, he was just always 4 steps ahead of him. It was, and I don't think Haney broke out second gear or broke sweat at all. He looked comfortable in there, like he's been. You know what I mean, like he was the home fighter. He looked easy. And I just love the way he dealt with the occasion. But Haney, this is a man that turned pro in Mexico, Tijuana. So he's been fighting big men since he was 16, 17. He understands this thing. So when, Kambosos making it look like, oh, Haney's been given everything and he's a spoiled. No, he hasn't. He's gone a hard way in another way. You know what I mean? Just because he was fighting and he wasn't like you fighting in the hotels with no one there, don't mean that man didn't have a hard way up. So, he's been doing this thing. So, respect, props to Haney and his dad, Bill Haney, man. Love for them. I love like the Haney story. His dad Bill, he's a great character in boxing, man. And he sacrificed he done for his son. It's inspiring, man. I got a young boy myself, so when I look at things like that, that inspires me. Like things like I don't need inspiration for my son, but when you see a dad do what his dad's done for him, definitely can you never always learn in life how you could be improving different things. So even improving as a father or something like that, I look at Bill Haney and what he's done for his boy, and I thought, rah. That's really inspirational, man. So big up Bill Haney as well. But yeah, no, I'm glad that he got that last minute visa into Australia, so he could go and put the icing on the cake for him and his boys' journey, man, to the top, man. So respect to them, man. Big up them, man. Big up Kambosos as well. At the end of the day, he did show respect to Haney at the end. Listen, Kambosos has done something that no other Australian's done, I don't think. So. This was a bigger feat, and we brought life back so the Australians, could get involved in boxing. I know boxing's not their biggest sport. I know they're into cricket and their other sports. So yeah, man, big up him to bringing out 40,000 people. Because the more eyes we get on our sport, the better for all of us. You know what I mean? We want So I know some people don't like the YouTube stuff, but it brings eyes to the sport. So big up Kambosos and them, man, there. But yeah, man, congrats to the undisputed champion of the world, undisputed lightweight champion of the world. And people say boxing is dead. Well, look over the last couple of years, the amount of undisputed champions we've had. Bearing in mind in the 4-belt era, it's so hard to get into the ring and fight each other, because if you have 4 belts, 4 men are claiming the kings of it. You know what I mean? Of the division. We got to get them all in to find out who the best is. Because back in the day, there's only 1 belt, and you could only be 1 champion, like the UFC right now. The UFC's only got 1 belt per division. So the fact we got 4 in boxing per division. We need to get the unification to find out who the best is. And what I'm liking at the moment is, even a few years ago, we almost had these obscure world champions where they're not elite champions. They're just world-class average champions, but they're not elite. Because I feel like there's a difference between world-class and elite. And we were just having a little average world champions, and then you could bring them over and they'll lose to one of your fighters. Like Eddie Hearn will have fighters over here that you get world title shots against guys that come in from Mexico or whatever. They're not doing anything or... Who was that? No. Quello was the champion, isn't it? I can't remember. He was fighting that guy, that Colombian guy. But yeah, just average champions basically what I'm trying to get at. But what I'm happy with now is we're starting to get some real elite, world class champions now, because we're kind of thinning that out. So that when you look at champions per division, well, he's actually a good fighter. That's a hard fight for any mandatory or or any other champion fighting that champion. So that's where we're getting at, and that's where I want boxing to give. So we're getting so many undisputed champions: Crawford, Usyk, Josh Taylor, Haney, Canelo, so many in the last couple of years, especially during the whole pandemic, and we're still getting the big fights happening. So yeah, man, love for watching for so long, man. I just want to have a quick breakdown of Kambosos Jr. versus Devin the Dream Haney. But yeah, just share your thoughts, like, share, subscribe, and there's gonna be more and more content. I'm gonna do the next one about the Joe Codina. Next one, but yeah, big up everyone for watching, and have a good day, man.